Hi guys, Simon Trezellian here. Now for the Lockdown Chronicles 31, still on it and still going strong with this lockdown. Lots of things are happening. I've been monitoring a lot of what's going on in the news and seeing again, as I tend to do, behind the scenes as opposed to what is being presented, and certainly in regards to this Black Lives Matter thing. Obviously, it started off with good intentions, countering police brutality, which is a thing, and not just against blacks. I think the police have largely overstepped in a number of areas over the years, become more militarized, become more an occupying force rather than a service, as I spoke about in my other video. But I feel that Black Lives Matter is really losing its way. It's being hijacked a lot by white liberals who have obviously got an agenda, and they seem to be using the black community to further that agenda, which I think is really wrong and is actually quite demeaning to the black community itself. Like anything, I feel like when you're a minority community, you can't just play by everybody's rules. Otherwise, you just get subjugated. That's what slavery was. I mean, the continent of Africa, being so rich in minerals and people, was subjugated by the imperials, and the imperials had invented the wheel, they'd domesticated the horse, and they used gunpowder, none of which was used by the African nations, and that is why they got subdued. So greater technology and innovation will always subdue another nation, and that we saw that with the Egyptians, we saw that with the Greeks, we saw that with the Romans, we saw that with the Mongols, the Chinese. Pretty much everybody in the world at some point has been under slavery. I mean, the Brits themselves. I mean, I'm British heritage, as you know, but the Brits were subdued by the Vikings, by the Saxons, by the Normans, by pretty much everybody else. So everyone's had their turn, I suppose, at being slaves. So instead of actually looking back to the past and which we can't change, we need to look at the present to see what we can change, because in changing the present we actually ensure the future. And I think that from the black community's point of view, they really need to look at playing to their strengths, and I have a strategy of how they could do that. With integrity, with utilizing the powers that they have, but also to offset some of the weaknesses that are inherent there as well. So we need to get some reality. I keep hearing this thing about systemic racism, and I'm really not sure that that's correct. This country, certainly in the United States, has massive opportunities for pretty much everybody. Now, I know that minority communities, they start off on the lower levels of the ladder and have been for a long time. But when you actually consider playing to the strengths, for instance, whilst you don't see the degree of percentages of black students in some of the higher universities, you see a lot in sports. So, for instance, the NBA is made up of over 80% of blacks in the NBA. 70% of the NFL is blacks. And guess what? They're some of the highest paid people in the world. Hollywood, you look at people like Will Smith, you look at Denzel Washington. These are people from the black community that have done very well within the system itself. So it shows that the system is not endemically racist. The system can be used by anyone, providing they have either the talent or the abilities to leverage that. And the black physiology is one of great strength, especially in the sporting arena. Most heavyweights in boxing have been black. That's why they call it the Great White Hope, because they can't find anyone white enough or powerful enough to be able to match them. So in that way, I think that the blacks need to get a handle on exactly what they do have. When you look at them musically, they're some of the highest paid performers in the world. You look at people like Michael Jackson, you look at people like Kanye West. Black music has contributed so much to the Western culture. Without the black community, we wouldn't have blues, we wouldn't have jazz. we wouldn't have reggae, we wouldn't have a lot of really, really cool music. The white people would just be left with glam rock and metal and country music, and that would largely be it. So the black culture has committed so much, to Western civilization. They need to honor that, and they need to realize that they're actually doing pretty well when you look at some of the millionaires within that community. Does it translate down back to where they came from? Probably not. And whose fault is that? It's probably not the system's fault. Perhaps there should be more contribution from those who have actually made it to pass the ladder down and actually help the communities up. That would be my thoughts on that. So the black community make up 12%, between 12 and 13% of the overall population of the United States. So they are a minority, and therefore when things like Black Lives Matter come on and everyone starts burning stuff, all you're going to do is piss off the majority, and that's really not going to help your case. So the black minority need to actually look at how they can present themselves. And they presented themselves pretty damn well, to be honest. They've had the highest office in the land with Barack Obama. They held the presidency. They held two attorney generals in a row, Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. They've held all of the top offices, both politically and militarily, that are available. Even in Hollywood, every time you think of God now, you think of Morgan Freeman. Every type of pop culture film that shows a president now shows a black president, or even a black female president. So, it's in the consciousness there, and they just need to evaluate that. In Congress, there's 156 black Congress people. That makes up 12%, which is exactly the representation of the populace. So they need to leverage that. So I think that it was really, really disingenuous of Biden to say, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That is part of the real problem, is that part of the systemic problem is older white people have been in charge for so long. And unfortunately, the blacks thinking that these guys are going to help them, they've just fallen into the trap. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party have largely become the new plantation owners, which is unfortunate because they only speak to the black community every 4 years. When they want power, because they know, guess why they're doing it? Because they know that the blacks hold the swing of power. Because the parties are so split down the middle that any small swing, even like 2 or 3%, is enough to sway, that state or sway the election. So therefore, if the black community really, really got down to it, they would not, because they're never going to be majority, ever. But they would hold the power. They'd be the power brokers. They'd be the kingmakers. And therefore, they could sell their influence to the party that is actually going to help them best. And I think that's really, really, really they need to look at now. I thought it was interesting when Kanye West came on board and said, hey, I'm going to be a president. First thing the Democrats said is, oh my God, that would split our vote and put Trump back into power. So you could see exactly where they're thinking. They're not looking at the black community to help them. They're just looking at them to use them to get back into power. So, Kanye West, will he be a good president? Well, at the end of the day, you've got an entertainer and a reality star who is a millionaire, who's got no political nous or experience. Well, we've heard that one before, haven't we? We heard that one in 2016 with Trump. So, and we all know how that worked out. So, whilst Kanye may well not be the person that we'd want as a president, I think that the thought of someone like a Kanye, we need another MLK. Really, the community, the black community, needs to find someone that is charismatic, that represents them, that could actually hold this 12% as a bargaining chip and go to, and create a caucus within the Senate, within the Congress, and say, hey guys, we need you to do something really radical to actually help the community. And whoever does that, we're going to put in power. Now, the Republicans haven't got a clue about the black community. They're a bunch of old white guys. They would like to. I don't think they're bad people. They would like to be able to align more with the black community. They just don't understand them. So they need to reach out to that community more. The black community probably need to look at the Republicans and go, what are you going to give us? You know, we've had 50 odd years of working with the Democrats, and they've given us nothing. You know, they've just given us bad inner cities, more ghettos, more problems, more issues with the police, and all of that type of thing. So I think it's about time that the black community started to look at leverage and say, right, this is who we are, this is who we represent, this is the power that we now hold given the political climate, and we will gift that power to whoever helps us with our community, with what we want to do. And if they could do that, I think literally within the next 4 years, you could see a massive change of feeling of spirit in the community, because there's so much victimhood, and right now this political status quo keeps putting the black community back into victimhood, telling them how bad it is for them, how it's always been bad for them, how systemic racism has pushed them down, and they're simply not seeing the achievements that they've actually had. Like I say, the highest office in the land, the top earning sports stars, the top earning movie stars are black. That's just a fact of life. Physiologically, they outperform whites, they outperform browns, they outperform yellows, whatever colours that you want to put on. So start to look to your strengths. I would love to see the black community come back to a position of true power. Anthropologically speaking, you go back down, and we all came from a single black woman in Africa. So the genes are there. We just need to look at that fact of not what's on the outside, but what's on the inside. And if we could do that, we're going to see a much better, more equitable world that actually serves everybody and doesn't disenfranchise just one particular race. So that's me, that's Simon Trezelyan. Just some thoughts for today. Open to feedback, as always. But other than that, stay safe. Let's get through this coronavirus nonsense and get back into life and start living again. That's what I want to do. All right, guys, you take care. Bye-bye now.